Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin O. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events. And welcome to this podcast, which is every Wednesday at 8 a.m., right on the dot, to entertain you with a new conversation about not a new horror film, but a horror film nevertheless. From different decades, different subgenres, different genres, we kind of touch a bit on everything, or at least we try, in order to give you, the audience, a greater appreciation of some of the great horror films out there. And to top off this month, we are delving deep into films based on Stephen King's works. Now, the thing about the movie that we're going to be discussing today is it's not based on any other work. It is the original screenplay by Stephen King, and that movie is Sleepwalkers. And to discuss the movie Sleepwalkers with me is Dave Watkins. We want to thank Dave for returning to the show. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome. Of course. Pleasure to be here.
Great. And the thing is, Stephen King didn't write a lot of theatrical films in his career. He's done a lot of the television work that is based on his film. So this is like one of those anomalies that we're actually glad that he's done, because he decided to create a whole new mythology for a whole different creature when he created the Sleepwalkers. So
yeah, and it's the first time that a story wasn't based on a book or a short story of his. It was an original story that he wrote the screenplay about.
Yeah. Well, he would do that later on television, like I said, but I can't remember any other.
Yeah, but this is the first. It's the first time he did it, but he did it again later. But
yeah. So, for everyone out there who may or may not have seen Sleepwalkers, essentially it's about this race of, they're not really cats, but cat-like humanoid creatures that are almost immortal.
Kind of werecats is kind of what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the fact that their mortal enemy are regular cats, it's a werecat type of creature that has survived a millennia or for years, or as the film actually suggests, they've been around since Egyptian times.
Right. It makes sense though, the way that they look for it to be Egyptian. They also have kind of vampire-like qualities as well. A lot of abilities, a lot of supernatural abilities make them pretty strong.
Yeah. So these sleepwalkers have survived by feeding off the energy or the virtue. They don't say they have to be a virgin. They say the virtue of their victims. So they can't just steal the virtue from anybody. It has to be a specific type of person.
Pretty inconvenient, actually. But I think it actually is a virgin, though. I think it is.
I think it is too, but they don't want to say virgin. they say virtue. I tried to pick up on that too. I tried it when I was rewatching. I was like, did they say virgin? No, they call it virtue.
Yeah.
Which is
it's yes, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, which is interesting, and I would say, wait, I mean, I want to get to know, when was the first time you saw this film, and tell me a little about your experience with
that. I probably saw it when it came on cable, more than likely. It's probably the first time I saw it. This is 1992 film. I remember it pretty good when it came on. I've seen it a bunch of times too. I think it came on a lot. There's one aspect of it, I think, that may be a polarizing aspect to it that I don't think we should talk about it immediately, but I think you probably know what it is.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah, but I think that's like a part that I'm surprised they got that in there, but I think it's only reason they got that in there because it was Stephen King. But I think that without that aspect in the film, it probably would be more well known. Even though I do like the aspect, but I think a lot of people probably were completely disgusted by it. But
surprisingly, I always knew about this. So this is where I kind of tell people how old I really am, because the reason why I was aware of this movie isn't because first of it is Stephen King. It's because I remember seeing the monster on the cover of Fangoria magazine. Like literally the very first issue of Fangoria I ever bought had the cover of Sleepwalkers on it, and reading the article made me want to fucking watch Sleepwalkers.
Yeah.
So I didn't have I'd never seen this magazine before that movie came out. I literally saw this newsstand say,
So
"Holy shit, this is a
yeah.
cool freaking monster! I have to see this movie called Sleepwalkers."
Is it the fully transformed monster, or it was kind of, or was it intermediate with the prosthetics?
Fully transformed. I still have the issue too,
Yeah.
surprisingly. I was a hardcore Fangoria collector back in the day before it shuttered its doors. And of course, it's back again in a different version of it, but I've not been a avid fan of the new version, mostly because it's just too damn thick and I don't have enough time to read it like I used to when I was a kid. But I would, and everyone knows I'm a huge monster kid, so that's
Right. I used to get that in the mail too, Fangoria back in the day. I never I don't I mean that was I never saw that issue, but I did get a lot of them in the mail. I probably did it for a few years. Had a big stack of 'em.
I was a hardcore fan of horror magazines after finding this issue, and then started getting like Famous Monster from Filmland. This one, there's a ton of them now, but I'm trying to. Everyone that I collected when I was a kid has now shuttered their doors.
Yeah.
Print unfortunately is kind of died out on a live magazine. There's still some out there, and of course Fangoria was revamped for the modern day audience. Now it's a different thing. You can't, it's not like a normal magazine is like it used to be. But the thing is that back then we didn't have the internet, so we learned about all these monster movies by reading about them. And Fangoria, for
Right.
me as a kid, was
Yeah. Yeah.
the top tier ones. And this monster was the coolest thing I had seen, or wanted to see back then, because everyone's seen aliens and xenomorphs are the coolest fucking monsters in the world. But I really enjoyed seeing the monster in this film, and I was dying to see this film because I didn't see it at the theater. This is a film I did not see at the theater. I saw it when it came out on VHS. Saw it when it came out. I love the movie because of the fact that it was for me. It was kind of a new mythology for a new creature. I kind of had that same love for this film like I do for Tremors. Like when Tremors came out, there was no other monster like Tremors, the Graboids. I love Tremors because it's so different.
Right. And like Tremors, this one has a lot of humor in it too, which works in its favor. Unless you're not ready for the humor. Like some people don't understand humor in horror movies, but there is a lot of humor in this film.
I think that this film is, and we're going to talk about this now, is probably polarizing because of the fact that the mother, who is never given a name other than Mother, and Charles.
Her name's Mary, isn't it? I think.
He just calls her Mother the whole movie. If she has a name, they never call her that.
Yeah, she's billed and she's credited in the end credits as Mary Brady. His name's Charles. Yeah,
his name is Charles.
Brian Krause plays Charles, and Alice Krige plays the mom,
who is brilliant, by the way, in this movie. And I didn't know who any of these actors in this movie were until I saw this movie. But the fact that the mother and son have an incestuous relationship is what makes it polarizing.
right?
And that's not subtle.
Yeah,
it's literally their first scene together.
Yeah. And it's yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, I remember talking to people about it. Yeah, they like a lot of people that really turned them off from it. I think it's a pretty brave thing to put in the film, and I really like both of their performances, and their chemistry together is off the charts. But it's kind of disturbing that they're playing mother and son. But it's interesting the way that the scene progresses too, because it starts out like the conversation. He's talking about he's picked a new target. Who is the character's name is Tanya, played by May Chin-a-Mick, who plays Shelley Johnson on Twin Peaks. But he's talking to the mom about her, and the mom's like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Oh, you're jealous," and she's like, and then they kind of go back and forth, and then like a little bit dialogue later, the mother's like, "Should I be jealous?" And then they get into this dance, and they start dancing, and then eventually they go into the bedroom, and he closes the door. So it's that's the first time that's happened in the film, and that one And that may have been enough to establish it, but then later on they actually show them having sex.
Yeah, which is interesting, not because they're having sex, but interesting because you see them as they're full sleepwalkers because
Right.
reflections show who they really are. Um,
Yeah.
and you bring, I remember you bringing up something really interesting about these characters, these monsters. They follow a lot of tropes of vampires. They have a lot of powers that instead of you not being able to see them in mirrors, you actually see them for who they really are in mirrors. They suck out their virtue by literally sucking out the energy out of them and then leave
Right.
as a corpse.
Yeah. But these I mean, they got like a ridiculous amount of powers, and they do have that one. The cats, they're severely allergic to cats, and that's really the only thing you can do against them. They're so allergic to cats it actually can kill them, as you see within the film. But and the cats hate them. The
Yeah,
cats are drawn to them, and they want to come mess them up. And they're kind of the longer they're in one place, the more cats come to where they're at. But they also they could do telekinesis, and they can change. They can make things disappear, and they can change the color of cars, and then change the model of cars. So they can. I don't know if that's a physical thing or if it's like a psychological thing for people thinking that the car looks different than it really does.
I don't know either. I like the aspect of them making things disappear because they call it dimming. When they can make things disappear, and it wasn't until I rewatched it for the podcast that I thought it was weird that they have the ability to physically change that car. They don't do
Yeah.
that to anything else that I remember, but the car they changed to make a model of the car and color and all that type of stuff, which I thought was weird. It probably would
Right.
be much better if he didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's they do some morphing stuff. It's just like the second time apparently morphing technology was used in a film, and it doesn't look horrible. But there's a scene where he's in the car and cops chasing him, and he looks over and he sees his face trying to turn in between his regular face and kind of one of the cat were creatures'
Yeah,
faces. But
which I
yeah,
found funny this time around. I never really found that funny, but when I was rewatching it, I found that his character, Charles Brady, when he first sees the cat Clovis in the police's
yeah,
car, and he
yeah,
morphs, I just find that hilarious because you think that after killing so many damn cats over however long they've been alive, that just seeing a regular cat wouldn't just make him do that. But I guess it's a plot point that they have to show the
right.
audience. And the officer, I can't remember the officer's name, Andy.
The character's name's Andy. Yeah, yeah,
Andy has to be able to have that moment where he doesn't believe what he's seeing, and he becomes obsessed with trying to find him again later in the story. So
Well, I think. Well, I think they're severely allergic to cats, and I think any cat would cause them to morph like that because of what happens with the cat. Because it really the cat's the hero of the movie. The Clovis is, he's the one that does, almost all of the damage to the Sleepwalkers.
well,
Otherwise it would have, yeah,
well, once they kill off Andy, yeah, Clovis says, and I just noticed this too when I rewatched it. I don't, I may have saw it but didn't really recognize it or didn't think about it. But after they kill Andy, and Clovis goes to mourn his owner for those few moments where he goes to the body. And then it's on. Clovis says, I'm
yeah,
finding who these fuckers are, and I'm going after them. And of course, he
yeah.
gathers the clan of cats in the last act to go to the house.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
Damn, Clovis, you get pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently that I was listening to the behind the scenes of it, and it said that cat, like most of the time you can't train a cat, but they said that cat was spot on. He was really, really a good actor too, especially for a cat. But they said he was like, of the animals they work with, it was one of the easiest animals to work with, and he pretty much did stuff in the scenes. They actually added stuff into some of the scenes because of what the cat was doing,
Oh,
because
nice.
of what he was doing with the Andy character. I really like the Andy character, the cop played by Dan Martin, and he's like there's another cop later on played by Ron Perlman. He's a real asshole, but this character is very likable, and Dan Martin has a very charismatic personality, and it's he's not in it enough, and it's actually kind of when he gets killed about halfway through, it's kind of like, wow, he's killed already, because I was really liking that character, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
But it,
When I was rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, he does get killed halfway through. But you like
yeah,
watching him. You think he'll have a much more profound effect on the story in the last act. But to be honest with you, once Brian Krause's what's his kid, Charles
yes,
tries to seduce and take over Tanya in Homeland, the graveyard sequence, the story just progresses really fast from there. I didn't remember it doing that when I first watched it. I was like, wow, this film go by
well,
really fast once that happened.
yeah. Well, that's the best. I mean, I really like a lot of the sequences in this film. We kind of gotten ahead of ourselves a little bit, but
Let's go
because
back.
that's really, yeah, I think we should go back, but I really like that cemetery sequence and what happens there. That's terrific. But I guess we should talk about Tanya a little bit, who's his target. And it may played by Mei Chen and Mick, but the first time you see her in a movie theater, and she's listening to something like the Twist or something like that on
Yeah.
a Walkman. And that was a weird thing about this film is like as you're watching it, you see the songs they're listening to are like these 60s songs.
Yes.
You know, it's weird, which is weird, but it has like 1992 like technology like a Walkman, but it's for some reason their songs. The first time you see Charles listening to a song, it's like Sleepwalk, like which is a 1958 song or 1959. So it's kind of weird that they're listening to these older songs, but she's in there listening to that and grooving to it, and that's when it's a great introduction to her. And
Yes.
that's when he pops in, and she's really embarrassed that he popped in on her. She's like dancing. She's working at the theater in the lobby, but it's a great scene between her dancing and then their interaction of her being embarrassed and then trying to get him some popcorn and all that. And the Charles character initially comes off very charming and very charismatic,
Mhm.
and but he's trying to lure her into this victim thing. But at the same time, he several times he's talking to his mom. He asks his mom, "Does it have to be her?" I think he kind of starts to like her as it's going, but and he's like, "Does it really have to be her?" And then the mom is, I don't know, it never shows how it works, but the mom has to feed through him, and that's probably why they have to have sex. But it seems like gets the energy, or whatever it is, and then he has to feed it to her, like she can't get it herself.
I believe, and this is due to the fact I've watched this way too many times. I believe that the reason why she can't get it herself, this energy that keeps him alive, is the fact that he still looks young enough to be able to get someone who's a virgin or has their virtue still intact, whereas she would have find it really hard to do so. Um, in this time period. Now, nowadays, she might be able to do that. Call her a milf or something.
I will like to, I mean, yeah, I kind of could see that, but I will like look back at even earlier than that. In the very first scene, which is a scene they had to shoot after the fact, with Mark Hamill's character in it at the beginning of it. Like Mark Hamill plays a cop, and he comes up to this house. I guess the house they were at before, and there's dead cats all over the place. And then they find the body of a young girl inside the house that they had sucked dry. Because apparently that's like really the only time you see what they do. You
Yeah,
know, they have completely sucked her dry to the part that she looks like a mummy.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that
Uh,
makes me think that they could easily, well, not necessarily, I mean, they could kidnap a kid. It would probably be easier than having to have him go out and seduce somebody. You know, they could just, kidnap a kid. Like, that's what they did before. But clearly it's risky, and they keep having to be on the move because they have to feed.
yeah, and they haven't been in that new location for all that long. Well, I not all that long, but I guess long enough to establish that they put together an entire house that's made of
Yeah,
this old decor and look. Now, I will say this: one of the reason why I think the music is of the age it is because they've been around for so damn long. And Charles does make mention that this is her favorite type of music, so I'm thinking that's just because they're so damn old. But it does bring to mind of why Machen Amick's character is listening to that same type of music, that older style music. I think this
yeah,
just adds to the ambiance of the film. There's no modern music in this movie like that. This
right.
movie has this old timey feel because you're supposed to think that these are ancient creatures that have been around for hundreds of years. I think that's the whole reason why the music fits the way it does. And I do honestly think if they put modern music for the time in there, it wouldn't give it that almost timeless quality type thing. You feel like it's dated.
I like it that she's listening to I think it's the twist or something like that, but it does come off like right when you first hear it, and her listening to that through a Walkman, it's like, yeah, you think that it should probably be something else, but I mean, I think it works fine. But and it does give it like we were talking about Silver Bullet earlier. It does kind of give you that kind of timeless type of feel. Even seeing the Walkman doesn't necessarily scream like current. It's not as bad as seeing like an answering machine. Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, the other thing is that this movie does, and I wanted to ask you this because I never noticed this until I rewatched it, and this could be because of everything that's going on in the modern day world in terms of Me Too movement and stuff like that. But I never saw Charles's character as a stalker as much as I see him now when I watch this movie. He has picked a victim out of a book and is literally stalking her. And we all know he's going to eventually kill her, but he's stalking her. He stalks her outside he's spying on her before he even gets to know her. And then he hangs out at the movie theater that first night he meets her while she gets picked up by her father. Like, he literally is acting like he's got this seductive charisma like a stalker does. Now, I never noticed that until I rewatched the movie. I don't know if you felt that way or not. I just never saw it until I recently rewatched it. What do you think about that?
It seemed like normal behavior to me. That's how I operate typically. No,
he put
okay.
in his arm at the very beginning.
Yeah, I know.
I'm rewatching it, and I'm like, that seems a little weird. But as the movie goes on, it does seem like a stalker thing, a crazy guy stalker, and then the way he reacts to her in the cemetery at Homeland later on, when he goes from being the charming guy to the "I'm going to kill you" guy, it's like, wow,
right.
180-degree turn so fast.
Well, I think it's like there's a few things to that. But one thing, I mean, clearly he's a stalker, but at the same time, he has kind of fixated on her in a way that he thinks is romantic.
Yeah.
And he thinks maybe he's being romantic, but clearly he's looking for a victim. So, but I think what he's doing is very risky for their species, as it turns out in the film, because I mean, they could do this a lot more cleverly and not be exposed. Because of the way he picks somebody. I mean, you need to pick somebody and snatch them instead of like trying to woo them if they want to stay in one place. Because if they want to stay in one place, they need to be a little smarter about what they're doing. Is what at the same time it helps the plot move forward. But and it's kind of weird if they're being this ridiculous and not very smart about what they're doing, and they move all their stuff into this new house, and then they have to move again so quickly, because it's like, you think about it, if you go and you find a victim and you go out on a date with them, you go to their house and pick them up and see their parents, and then they know that you went out on a date with them, and suddenly they find them mummified the next day or whatever, then it's like, okay, who could have done this? I wonder who it was.
Yeah, the person she went on a date with.
I mean, it couldn't have been the boyfriend,
I know. I didn't think about any of that, and to be honest with you, when the movie came out, I never thought about any of this shit.
You shouldn't think about it. I mean, because it's like because you're watching the film and the script flows at a really razor sharp pace for the most part, and you just have to really think like what we're doing now, like pick it apart. But it works. But if you think about it, if you look at the Sleepwalkers and the way they're handling it, it's just not they're not looking at their survival very good. They could do it a little smarter, but they're desperate. But but he's also, I don't know how old he is, but he looks young and he's actually acts young too. And the way that he becomes obsessed with Tanya, and then he, you know, I don't. I mean, he does act like a teenager almost, but I assume he's much older than that.
Yeah, I got that impression too when I rewatched it. I was like, well, he actually acts much like a teenager. He doesn't act nearly as world weary as his mother does. His mother, especially in that last act when his mother
Yeah.
goes to kidnap Tanya from her own house. Alice Creed is freaking brilliant in this movie. I love to say, because her
Yeah.
performance
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
fucking over the top great.
Yeah.
Her reactions to all the other characters, even her the clever one liners they give her are actually really good. Uh,
I, well, yeah, I think in general, even like the earlier scenes when she's just in the house, and she treats it like Shakespeare almost. She's like mesmerizing, really, like, in every scene she's in. And it's the last part where she becomes the main villain is just like off the charts.
Yeah, and it just chills me when I rewatch. I was like, damn, she's still good in this role.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, and you think, like you said, there'd be a little bit more care taken to the actual unfolding of why they are doing what they're doing. But I do have to say that the script itself does a really good job trying to create this other world, worldly creatures. From the fact that the opening credit sequence shows you all these images of shapeshifters that are probably all real images, but that cobbled together to create the sequence. And then, of course,
right, yeah, yeah,
when Charles is in class telling the story that he wrote about the Sleepwalkers, which is really just him telling his own story, gives the audience and the Tanya a clear picture of what Sleepwalkers are without her actually knowing that it's Charles and his mother. And the audience get to learn a whole lot in such a short amount of time, and it's really cleverly done.
Well, and speaking of that, the teacher's played by Glenn Shadrick, who played Otho on Beetlejuice. Great actor, but he catches that guy's attention, and the guy follows him. He does some more research, and then he finds out that he's not legit, and then he pulls him over, and then he comes up and he makes a suggestion that, yeah, that I guess that he wants to do some, like, homosexual stuff with the guy, but then instead of trying to play it off in a smart way, Brian Krause's character Charles, like, rips his hand off, and then chases him into the woods and kills him. So he kind of does it out of anger, I think, because I think both of the characters, the mom and the son, don't react very fearsome. They have some animal instincts within them. So I think that's maybe part of why they act the way that they do, and they don't do things in a smart way to not get themselves caught as being supernatural creatures who are feeding off of virgins. Because it's like, you would not want the cops to find this teacher killed, you know what I'm saying? It's better just to go whatever he wants done, so that way you don't get caught later on, being what you're doing. So I don't know. And then after that, when he's driving away from him, he speeds away, and that's when first catches the cop's attention, and that's what starts the speed chase. I mean, what do you think about that aspect of it, though?
I just think that was just a way to introduce the Andy character and Clovis character, to be honest with you, because there is no reason, logically speaking, that the Charles character, after killing his teacher and not really burying the body, because he says later on that the police will eventually find his teacher's body in the woods. We may not have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, they got me. Plus, the teacher's car's on the side of the road. Yeah, he should have done something with the body. It's like they don't have, like, that survival instinct. It seems like that they should, considering that they've probably been living a long time and they go from town to town, but it's like they don't. I mean, obviously, it's to move. Another reason is so you get a kill earlier on, like ripping his arm off, which is cool, and then killing him in the woods. So you get an earlier kill, because you got to as you're scripting this, you got to have those kills. But it seems like they, if he's going to kill him, he needs to get rid of his car and the body so nobody can find it.
Yeah. Well, and then of course speeding away and purposely manipulating and getting on the cop's bad side, just because he wants to, because he's playing with them.
Right. Yeah. Draws a lot of attention to him. Yeah, you think you'd want you would not want attention drawn to you in their situation.
Well, yeah, especially when he slows down to allow the cop to see who he is, just to flip on. It's like, that seems kind of weird. But I guess that's the scene where you have to throw it, where Clovis has to see him for the first time.
Right.
The dwarf thing. I think a lot of things in the film are done more for plot points, plot purposes instead of logic.
Right, plot or just because they're fun. Having a car chase is fun, and killing the teacher's a fun scene. And it is fun. And it is. But at the same time, it's like you think about their survival instincts just don't seem in line with them still being alive after a long period of time, because they don't seem very careful in the least bit.
And you don't get, but the thing is, all of that comes into play in the last act when after the Homeland sequence, and when what's his face, Charles is trying to suck the life out of Tammy, right? Shit, I almost forgot her name.
Tanya.
That's why I double checked. After Tanya, and of course Tanya just happens to go away from him, and even though she wounds him, he plays it off as being very funny and like it's nothing because he hasn't been mortally wounded.
Right. When he flips like that, it's crazy though. It's just he goes from being this charming guy to just like he just starts making puns and just like yelling at her, and it's pretty hilarious, really. It kind of reminds me of the way that in Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, when the guy's like, garbage day. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. But it kind of reminds me of that, but he says things like, she's trying to get away from him. He's like, why don't you just think of yourself as lunch? And then, things like that. And he's just like yelling hilarious things that are just like
that he's never done at all in the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And he says, he's like, I lied. It does have to hurt, And so he seems like at that point, he seems to be really enjoying that part of it. When he decides that he's going to kill her, and he's trying to suck. A few times he pins her to the ground and starts trying to like suck this blue light out of her mouth, which I guess is kind of her soul or her essence or something. I guess that's what it ends up mummifying them. But like saying, she fights him, and she wouldn't have gotten away. But then Andy drives up with a cat. And really, even the cop driving up, that's the thing. I think that's one thing that you could justify the way that they act, because they think that they are invincible, and they are invincible with the exception of the cats.
Okay.
Yeah, but here Andy comes up, and Andy's trying to help her, puts her in the back of the car, but then he comes up and sticks like a pencil into the side of Andy's head, slings him onto the ground. It goes into his head. It's a pretty graphic shot, and then he's like, "Cop kebab." Which is very, very garbage daylight,
Yes, I know his character changes, and that whole sequence is not really that long, so it seems really out of character for a little bit, because for the rest of the film he's wounded, because Clovis gets attacked by Clovis, and every time Clovis scratches him, those are mortal wounds, that he almost couldn't get back from.
Well, he doesn't get back from it. Andy shoots him too, but I don't think that does as much damage as what the cat does to him, because Andy shoots him and then he shoots Andy back, and then the cat jumps on him, and the cat's on him for a really long period of time, and there's all this smoke, and that's really like what that cat does to him is a fatal wound, because he never recovers from it.
He recovers for 2 seconds.
Yeah, but he wasn't. He maybe might have been able to recover, but not what happens, like because he can't rejuvenate. They try to get him to recover, but since the cops are onto it, and Clovis goes and gets those other cats, he's not ever given the opportunity to finish healing.
No, 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 no.
But
But from then on, it becomes a different type of movie because it's not really about like you're following him and you're following Tanya for most of the movie, and the mother is just kind of a background character. But once we have Charles is wounded and he gets back home, oh, his mother becomes a whole other story.
right, and she's the mother character is very emotional character throughout, and it's very like kept pinned down. But once her son's messed up, she really takes it with a rage. It's like there's a rage in her, and she doesn't care anymore. She doesn't care about getting caught. She just is going to kill everybody that's in her way, and she's fully capable of doing it.
Yeah, because the one thing I
Yeah,
really loved about her character is that she has a fear of cats, but when the cats get near her, what she does, she just grabs it right out of the air as it jumps,
yeah,
snaps its neck, and for a good bout, most of the other cats kind of
yeah.
step back for a while.
Right, yeah, she kills one of them, but at the beginning of it, they killed a lot of them. There's a lot of them dead in that opening part, but it's not really a fear of cats. I don't think she has. She is, but she it's a warranted fear
Yeah,
because the cats can kill them, and just like a little scratch can hurt them really bad.
which is
So it's not like you get like a little scratch from the cat, and you're going to be out for like a week or more of just it's,
yeah. But the thing is, once her son is wounded, and she goes after Tanya, she's a force of rage. Your rage is a good word to say. You said a good word when you say rage,
yeah.
because she literally goes to Tanya's house to kidnap her and to save her son, and she doesn't care who gets in the way, whether it's cops or Tanya's parents or anyone. They are all cannibals
Right. And
to that.
by the way, Kanye's parents are played by the parents from Ferris Bueller's Day
Yeah.
Off. Do you notice that? It's like, and they were married in real life for a while.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, oh yeah, they were married when they did the movie, but they got a divorce pretty soon after the movie.
Oh, dude.
Um, but Lyman Ward's the dad and Cindy Pickett is the mom. But when she shows up at her house, the dad answers the door and she has a vase of flowers something in her hand. She smashes it into his face, and I think that kills him because you never see him
He never
revive.
gets
And
back up.
she throws the mom out the window. The mom survives because you see her getting back up later. But then it's just like killing any cop, she's going to kill that cop. Say,
She sticks an ear of corn in the back of one cop,
yeah,
bites off Ron Perlman's fingers, which is awesome.
yeah, yeah. Like the look on her face when she bites off his fingers is great.
I mean, she's ruthless. Something that you wouldn't see in the Charles character in the entire movie. His mother is all that times 10.
Right.
Just picks up Tanya, throws her in the cop car, and shoots at the other cars to blow them up. I was like, jeez. I'm
Yeah.
rewatching this and I'm thinking, damn, she's hardcore.
Yeah. She's really is a great character. It's I don't know if without Charles, I'm not sure how if she would have been able to survive going past the end of the film because because he brings her food or her so I'm not sure if she would have been able to survive without another sleepwalker to be able to feed her. So it's I guess at that point it's sort of it might as well just go kill everybody.
Well, and that's one of the things I did like about the film because they explain a lot without explaining a lot. You get the sense that they're traveling and looking for other sleepwalkers because she makes mention that there are other sleepwalkers. They just haven't found them yet. You kind of get the impression
Yeah,
that they're on this. They're going to keep traveling no matter what, looking for other sleepwalkers. Now, at no point in this film do either one of these characters actually look like they're actively looking for other sleepwalkers. They're just looking for the next meal. Uh,
well, most of the film though is told in a short period of time.
yeah,
It's not like, and I think a lot of that sort of exposition is masked, or you're able to avoid seeing it but by the quickness of what happens during the plot of the film. Though it could have been benefited from a little more exposition if it was done in an entertaining way. That's why they added the scene at the beginning, so at least you see the aftermath of what they did. And I almost feel like what probably the best thing that they could have done is shown that them doing something at the beginning,
Mm.
like the actual sleepwalkers, like the process of how it goes from getting the virgin to sucking the soul out and feeding the mom. It would have been nice to see it, and you could have done it like in this earlier. They could have like shown that first. It could have been like the previous victim before they moved into the
Well,
new town. But
it's very cryptic because the only thing you get is when that very first sequence with the mom and Charles after they've had this weird incestuous conversation and they go up to the bedroom and then outside of the house you see the blue light coming from the window. You don't know what it is just yet, but you do see the blue light coming through the window. That's about all you get. But
yeah,
I think there's so much taboo stuff in the movie already.
yeah.
They kind of mask it with the fact that the film is entertaining and it's kind of like a nonstop movie once it really gets going. Um,
Now you mention that, I didn't even think about that because that blue light coming through the window is him feeding her.
mhm.
That is that. But then the next time they have sex, he
Yeah,
hasn't killed anybody else to feed her with. You know what I'm saying? So they're just doing it
yeah.
just to do it at that point. You know what I'm saying? Yes.
Well, it's a weird relationship, but it adds this different element to this film that you don't see in most other mainstream horror films. You have these two creatures that are very much incestuous creatures. Um, I mean, I can't even think of another mainstream movie that even come close to trying to do something like this. I think Stephen King had a lot of goodwill in Hollywood when they allowed him to do this movie. And
Sure.
Mick Garris, who I believe this was his first real theatrical movie. I can't remember.
No, yeah. So this is his first studio film. That's what he said in his interview. It's funny. He said when they were shooting the film, they were shooting Bram Stoker's Dracula on the set at the same time, and some other big film. I'm trying to remember the other one, but he shot it on a studio in studio. So he says it's the first time he'd done it. I think prior to this, he'd done Critters too.
That's right, Critters 2. I was about to say, I was thinking he did another one, but to be honest with you, I can't even remember if Critters 2 had a theatrical release or not.
Well, I think it. Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it wasn't a studio film. The other film was Hook, the Robin Williams film that they were shooting on the studio at the same time. So it was like Hook, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and then Sleepwalkers was the lowest budget of the three of them. But it was a studio film.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean other films he's a writer as well. Mick Garris. He also wrote Hocus Pocus, and he did another Stephen King movie later on called Riding the Bullet. But I don't think this one really.
He did lots of other Stephen King some of the mini series he did.
Yeah,
And then of course he's one that shepherded the whole Masters of Horror series, where he got a lot of people together to do that. Um, I have his book, but I haven't read the book yet. I'm sorry to say, I've got his book, but I haven't read it. Which happens sometimes. But
right.
I've always thought this movie was well done and entertaining. It wasn't until I rewatched it where I started picking up on some of the strangeness with the like, oh wait, he's really a stalker. Oh, halfway through the movie, the main character kind of becomes incapacitated and the mother takes over for the rest of the movie. Things like that I
Yeah.
just never picked up on when I first saw the movie or when I watched it as a kid. It wasn't until I rewatched it older.
Right, yeah. It is it's a cool thing that I mean it's that he gets incapacitated or really like from there on that's probably the worst part of the film for him because he had to actually wear that suit when he kind of turns into mostly sleepwalker and he's laying on the sofa. He said it was horrible having to do those scenes. But
Oh wow.
but the but really like it is one of those where like he's credited top build, but his character is kind of taken out of the story a little bit past halfway through for the most part.
Yeah.
and the mother's character becomes the antagonist. Really, like Machen a mixed character. Tanya's the protagonist of the film in for the most part, even though the cat's the one that does all the heavy lifting.
The cat does all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, yeah. But she fights. She fights pretty good, but she didn't really have a chance of winning without the cat.
She fights in the homeland or the cemetery sequences. She fights back. After that,
she fights back. Yeah,
she's traumatized.
but she fights back with the mom at the end, though. When the mom, she tries to get away from her and things of that nature. And eventually, when the cats get her too, they all jump on her and she bursts into flames.
So
yeah.
You bring up the only really big gripe I have with the film, which is after the cats have more or less ripped her to shreds and she turns into fire, she turns back human.
Right.
I
was gonna mention that it seems really unnecessary, other than they maybe just wanted the actress to be back in there for 2 more seconds. But
so too, I was like, oh man, because up until then I was like, oh, this is great, and then I forgot about that sequence. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, why? It did. I think you're right. I think it was like we need the actress back in there for at least 2 more seconds to end it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was weird. I didn't. It wasn't like a deal breaker for me, but I thought it was kind of weird that she busted on the car window and she's back in her regular form. She should have still been in sleepwalker form at that point.
Yeah,
But
I will say she kills a lot of people. I mean, even the main sheriff, she picks his ass up and just throws him on the fence. I was like, damn, I forgot all this stuff. I was like, she's ruthless.
Right. The main sheriff is pretty likable sheriff too, but that like Ron Perlman's guy that shows up, that Captain Soames, he's a real asshole and it's pretty hilarious. He kind of shows up halfway through and he's just a real douchebag. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
with him getting his fingers bit off.
Yeah.
That was great. But then the sheriff guy's pretty likable, so it's kind of messed up. She throws him on the fence, but still, it looks cool though.
Well, I hate to say this, but in this film, a lot of innocent people get something done to them. I mean, Tanya's parents, the
Andy, the cop, who's a very likable cop.
Yeah. I mean, geez, if you have any preconceived notions of how this movie should go, it gets thrown out the window when you're actually watching it, because it does switch focus from different characters. You think that Andy could actually be the main character. He would come in and save the day at the very end with Clovis, but that's not what happened.
Really, like the main thing with Andy is to introduce Clovis into the story, which works really well. But I mean, I think though in horror, it's you don't want to just have assholes get killed. It's always kind of fun to see assholes get killed, but I think it's more emotional when you see characters who shouldn't get killed because it makes the stakes higher. Otherwise, it's just assholes getting killed, and but it also makes you feel something, because you see the Andy character, very likable character, in him getting killed, kind of takes it back a little bit. It make you think about it a little bit differently than just like you see the perverted teacher get killed. That guy probably deserved it. And then the Soames character, the asshole cop, the guy probably deserved it, even though not really, but he but at the same time it's easier to see somebody. But then when you see someone like Andy get killed, it's like, oh man, that sucked. But it makes you feel different, I guess, about certain aspects.
So, do you think the film was successful in creating a whole new mythology of monsters, like it did?
Well, there was talk about making a sequel. It never came to fruition, but it didn't turn into like Children of the Corn, where they had all these sequels. It just kind of stayed at one. They could have gone forward with this. I think it could have been a contender. But I do like the Sleepwalkers character. I do like the monsters. I think that I don't like it that they just stopped at one in a way, and I don't think a lot of people realize how fun the film is, and how I'm not sure what I guess there, like I said, we were talking about earlier, there are a few things holding it back from mainstream audience appreciation. Like, I think most people were the mother-son relationship would probably gross them out, especially back then. If you look at like a show like Game of Thrones and you have like, Jamie Lannister and his sister having that relationship, it's pretty gross, but now I think people are a little more accepting with that sort of pushing the boundaries with incestuous relationships and things. Not that it's they approve of it, but now they probably wouldn't be as like that was gross.
I
I
will
don't know.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was all I had to say about it. But I did have another thing. I really like I say, I do like the monsters, and I think it could have. I think it's underseen and underappreciated in general.
So I am going to agree with what you said earlier a little bit in that this film with all the mythology and all the stuff that went into putting that together, Stephen King for this film, I would have loved to have seen sequels explore a lot more of the world of the Sleepwalkers. I think audiences would have really dug this, even if it was a straight to video release. Because we never got another Sleepwalker, yet we got like 100 fucking Children of the Corns out there, and for what reason?
Yeah,
No one fucking knows. This film, I think, would have been a huge cult film franchise if they had explored more of this, and they could have. The monsters were practical. They could have done a lot with the Sleepwalkers. I don't know if the CGI aspects are what turned people off because Children of the Corn, with the exception of the second and maybe a little bit of the third one, doesn't rely on CGI all that much, which is probably why they kept making those shitty movies.
yeah.
Who knows?
Right. Yeah, I mean, clearly these monsters are. It's a pretty cool suit.
Mm.
Um, they the director didn't like the heads of them. He said he thought the head was too big. He wanted it to be. When he saw the Tommy knockers, he's like the heads needed to be about that big. But the way that they were designed, they had to have mechanics in there. They're actually people in suits, different people than the actors. Once they're in the full suits, when obviously when they got the prosthetics on their faces, that's the actors. But when they're in full sleepwalker mode, they're played by stunt people.
Hmm. Okay.
But the director, I mean, I think they look pretty cool. But the director said he wasn't that happy with the way that they looked in full sleepwalker mode. He said he liked the prosthetic intermittent stuff, but not the full sleepwalker mode.
Mm. Mm. Well,
But
I always
you were, yeah, yeah.
you know
I'd
what?
say you were impressed with it. Which you saw that on Fangoria, and you're like, that's it right there.
Well, yeah, I was a monster kid. Us monster kids love when there's a new monster movie out. But
Yeah,
I saw a lot of movies in the early '90s. Like I said, I saw a lot of horror movies in the late '80s at the theater. Um, but for some reason, this movie escaped my mother's radar. I have no idea why, because she would take me to most of the Stephen King movies, but for this one escaped her for some reason. Probably because it wasn't based on the book. Now that I think about it, because she had read all the books, we saw the movies based on books. This one wasn't based on the book, so this probably just did not register on her radar at all. That's probably what it is. Um, which is sad. I would have
right.
loved to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
this in the theater. Because and I do believe there just aren't enough monster movies, and there's not enough franchises that extend from monster movies. Especially even if they were straight to DVD flicks. There's very few of them out there. Uh, Maybe monsters just
yeah.
cost too damn much. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a great creature feature. Is how I guess I kind of think of it that way. But I think that I don't know if it's like this film made money. Yeah, it cost 15 million to make it, which is decent budget for this type of film in 1992, and it made $30 million, so it made double its budget, which is pretty
Yeah, so
good. But,
yeah, so why? Yeah, maybe
yeah,
Stephen, and this could also be with the rights issue. Maybe Stephen King owns the rights to this, and he said you're not making any fucking sequels. Whereas with Children of the Corn, the rights were sold to the. Eventually, they ended up with the Weinstein's and Dimension
right.
Films, who kept cranking out shitty sequel year after year after year to keep the hold the rights to Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
I don't know
It's
why.
kind of like, yeah. But Pet Cemetery, when they made Pet Cemetery 2, he made them take his name off of the film. I think they had the rights to the story, but they didn't have the rights to his name. I think the same thing with Children of the Corn, because once it got past like the first one, it's no longer Stephen King's Children of the Corn. It's like Children of the Corn,
Yeah.
part 8 or whatever it is.
I will say that I recently just watched the last one, like maybe a couple weeks ago, the Children of the Corn Runaway, because that had been the one I had not seen. It's pretty bad too.
pretty stellar. I guess it's another one that they made just to keep the rights.
I don't even think there's any corn in that movie. There's no corn in that movie. I don't think there's any corn in that movie. But yeah. I have, the thing is, I was I'm not like that as much anymore. But when I was younger, and VHS rentals was the jam, I would rent out all the new fucking sequels when they came out. And like I said, Sleepwalkers was one of those movies I rented when it first came out because I didn't see it at the theater. I would have seen sequels had they made sequels, but they didn't. That's unfortunate for the history of the movie. I'm hoping that people can appreciate this movie and have seen it. I actually don't know the status or the cult status of this film. I have actually not talked to many people about this film. I don't know if you have or not, but I most certainly have not.
Yeah. I don't know if it has a huge cult status. There is a decent Scream Factory release of the film, which is actually a pretty good release, and it does have interviews with all the main casts, all 3 of the main cast members, which is rare for that type of thing now. I guess it used to be easier to get them on there, but you see less of that lately. But it's not a 4K release; it's just a Blu-ray release right now. But it has a fantastic cover, like a artist drawn cover by Devin Whitehead, and it looks fantastic. It looks awesome artwork.
Okay.
But as far as the cult status, I don't know. To me, I would assume that it is because I'm very aware of it, and I saw it a lot of times when it first came out. So I've always kind of assumed like everybody knew about it. So I don't know.
I honestly don't know if any of my friends, unless you're hardcore horror people like me and you are, who know the movie, especially newer. I mean, minority audiences. I have a lot of kids as friends. Who can't appreciate some of the 80s and 90s movies. Their love of their enjoyment of horror movies kind of stem from Scream on, like that self-referential type movies, or what they
I'll tell you though, I don't know if it's going to stay that way because like I know for me, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, but I have appreciation for older films that were like the Hammer films in the 70s and even like Giallo films and even the films from like the 30s and 40s with the Universal monster films. I have appreciation for all of that. So I don't. Hopefully, kids today could start to look back and appreciate different genre or different years of films because you can. I don't know. That's what I hope because myself, I'm not stuck in the decade that I was born in. Well, there's not. I could look at ones before that and still appreciate them and even say this was done better than something done now. It can't be done that way again because of whatever audiences now have to have faster things in certain situations. But I can still appreciate older stuff.
I would be hard pressed to believe that they would a studio would actually try and make this film because of the incestuous content of it. It would work in something like Game of Thrones. Because the Game of Thrones is on HBO, and they just break all taboos anyways, and always have been doing it. But
this story doesn't have to have that. It could easily be written differently.
It could,
so that's not in there. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, even if you wanted to have the Sleepwalkers, like not mother and son or whatever, they could be boyfriend and girlfriend, and then, I mean, things could be hidden too. Like they used to do that all the time during the Hays Code era. Like they would have like homosexual character and then did clearly homosexual on screen like Peter Lorre and in the Maltese Falcon, and they would write it in a way that the code people didn't even notice it,
Yeah.
But they could write it so you don't actually know that they go have sex. It's just implied and subtly so people don't pick it up. You have to be really in tune to know, because I think a lot of times older during the code era, some people would never think that.
Yeah.
You would never think this mother and son are going to have sex. So there might be a way to get around it by like subtly implying it, but not showing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could just change the whole story. They don't have to. You can have them feed in a different way than having to do it that way. You could do it in a different way.
Yeah, you could. But to be but would you remember the movie nearly as well if it didn't have it? Because that's interesting.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a talking point about the film. It's like if you're going, oh yeah, I remember Sleepwalkers. Isn't that the monster movie where the mother and son or have sex in it? It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That's a conversation.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a good question. I've actually thought about that myself too. I mean, obviously we're living in a world where this film exists the way that it is, so we don't know the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think though, without those scenes, people might remember other parts of the movie better.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't know, but I would think that like if the mother's killing spree at the end, which is friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
they might be remembering that better. I've always remembered that part pretty good, but at the same time, I bet a lot of people they probably just tuned out of the film a lot of times because of they're like, man, that is really gross. My mind can't handle that.
I think the film has a lot of great qualities to it that warrant a viewing if for people who have never viewed it. I think it is a very bold film for Stephen King to have written, and as an original story for a screenplay. It's not something that he wrote in a novel. Like he could have written anything, but this is how he wrote it. And so we must take that into consideration because, frankly, there's not many theatrical movies that he did write. That Pet Sematary, Maximum Overdrive. Most of what he stuck to was a lot of the television work. He's done a ton of television work. And so we should take a look at the stuff that he does do when it is a screenplay. When I looked at some of his screenplays, Pet Sematary is still one of my favorites, but Storm of the Century, which is a miniseries, is I think fucking brilliant.
Right.
And those are things that I really, really enjoy of his that he wrote, and that's an original. That's not based on a work of another novel of his either. Now that I think about it, but I also enjoyed like Golden Years. Golden Years was a television series that wasn't based on other original work either. It was just original for the television.
I watched Golden Years when it came on, and they didn't finish it. They just ended.
Which version did you watch? Did you watch?
Well, I watched it. Yeah, I watched it when it was on TV, and they didn't finish it. They got canceled.
They didn't finish it, but there is an ending to it if you watch the DVD release. There is an ending to it, and I didn't.
Right, I've got the DVD. I haven't. I hadn't watched it, but yeah, I heard that though. I heard there's an ending, but
yeah, there's an ending. I was like, they must have shot it because he didn't know whether or not he was going to be able to do another season. So they shot an ending. It didn't air. But they put it on the DVD release, and I'm like, this is so fucking weird. Plus, the DVD release isn't the whole the whole series either. They've chopped it up to
it'd be shorter
now, which I don't
like. I saw it with I guess the reason I have it was in a set with some other of his miniseries. I think it was like It and The Shining. But the Shining miniseries now has a Blu-ray release, which is pretty good. But there's also a Salem's Lot miniseries, which is pretty good too. Rob Lowe in it.
Yeah, but I'm still looking for the original cut of the Tobe Hooper's miniseries of Salem's Lot, and not the movie version. The movie version,
they've got one. I've got that. It's on Blu-ray.
You got it's the entire miniseries, not the but because remember
it's long.
Yeah, because they recut it so they can make it into a theatrical release. And I've heard they're different, but I've never seen the original television miniseries. So I don't fucking know. I've only seen.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it when it was on TV. Like it was. I was scared, man. I saw the vampire come out the window. Yeah,
Yeah. I still like Salem Lot, so I can't.
yeah.
I like the Rob Lowe version. I just have not seen the new version. So,
I hadn't
but
seen
that,
it either, the newest one, but
but
I do like it.
that will be for another podcast episode. Any other words you want to say about Sleepwalkers before we get to rating it?
Oh, let's get into it.
All right. So, everyone out there who's listening to the podcast, we now rate the movies as we see fit from 1 star to 5 stars. 1 star being very bad, 5 stars being excellent. 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 Where on the spectrum would you put Stephen King's Sleepwalkers, Dave?
Well, I'm going to give it a 4. Maybe seem a little high, but I like the script, even though that like we talked about some inconsistencies with it, but I think it's made up for with the performances, especially by Alice Craig,
Yeah.
and freaking fantastic, and the humor, and also even the violence when it happens is hilarious in a way. So I think it's a lot of fun, and the sleepwalkers themselves. I like the fact that I like the cat attacking, and I like all the special effects that are in the film.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give it a 4. I would have given it a 4 when I first saw the movie, and I'm still going to give it a 4 now because no matter what I have said tonight, I still find the fucking movie entertaining and it's fast paced. And Alice Krige is fucking phenomenal in this movie. I love the mythology with the Sleepwalkers. I wish they had done sequels. We only got a glimpse of them here, and for the fact that, and we did not discuss this, and I wish we had, for the fact that there are so many goddamn cameos in this movie, from Clive Barker to was it John Landis, and I think Toby Hooper all have cameos, and Mark Hamill,
Stephen King. Yeah, Stephen King himself's in it too. Yeah.
Which is funny. I forgot Stephen King was in here, but he's the guy. He's the guy who's supposed to be locking up Homeland, the whatchamacallit,
Cemetery. Yeah.
cemetery, but doesn't.
Right.
Oh,
It's a pretty funny scene too because he's walking around and he's talking to each person's like another famous person. You know, he walks up to him. He's like, "Hey," I'm not going to like take responsibility for this. And like, "Oh, I'm not the guy you need to talk to. You need to talk to that guy." And he goes over and it's like somebody else famous, you know.
yeah, that's Toby Hooper and Clive Barker. I'm like, I had forgotten that until I rewatched. I was like, holy shit, I forgot they were in this movie in this little cameo sequence. It's freaking brilliant. I loved it. And I forgot Mark Hamill was in the beginning too. I was like, holy shit,
Right.
Mark Hamill. So I give it a 4 because when I am entertained by this movie. It's such a sad. It's so sad that for me, I don't hear enough people talk about it, and there was no sequels to it to extend its fan base. So I hope that after discussing it today, and people listen to this, that they will seek out the movie if they've never seen it, and or go back and rewatch it with a new clarity, because it is a film that I hope more people get to watch. And I hope that Stephen King continues to do new story and new ideals. I know he doesn't do as many TV movies or TV or work at all as much as he used to, because he's so busy writing a new novel, it seems like every 8 months.
Yeah, right.
But he used to be a really huge force in the horror genre with all the stuff that used to be produced from his work and stuff that he would produce himself or he would write himself for television. And I kind of missed that. So with that, I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on this conversation about Sleepwalkers. I hope that everyone out there will check out some of the other great movies, Stephen King based movies that we've discussed this month, or in the past, because we've done some of his previous movies in previous episodes. Make sure to check out all of our previous episodes, not just the one focused on Stephen King works. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do that thing you do to your favorite podcast, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube. Make sure to come by every Wednesday at 8 a.m. for a new episode. And from everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken House Pictures.